Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy as the 2024 U.S. presidential candidate. I'm getting very excited about him, and the reason why is I think Vivek, I'm going to use a mnemonic in this, octo-ward morality. And so I'll speak to each one of these, right? But I actually think that Vivek Ramaswamy is the perfect solution to fix three major problems in the Republican Party right now. So let's get into this. So first of all, I think Vivek Ramaswamy has between 1 and 5% chance of beating President Donald Trump if he's alive. I think this is the kicker. If President Donald Trump is alive, if makes it to makes it to the 2024 election, and I do think there's a possibility he won't because he's going to be 80, right? Seeing President Biden, I think having an 80-year-old president is absolutely reckless. It seems outrageously cruel to put an 80-year-old person in charge of the greatest nation in the world. It is an experiment we've run, and it is not working. It is cruel and unusual punishment to a human being. I think it is grinding. It is like grinding President Biden. It's grinding him personally, right? And it's hard. Like every 3 months we watch him fall, and we're like, did half his bones break? It is very grueling. And because he's the president, every time some terrible thing happens in the nation, they're like, get that 80-year-old guy on his feet, have him trip over some more wires. It is cruel. It is brutally cruel. By the way, I'm going to link to it. Josh Johnson, absolutely brilliant comedian, kind of 100% laid it out on why this 80-year-old president experiment has been a horrible failure. So let's get all the way there. Octo-ward morality. So the Republicans have three huge problems. Okay, one, the Democrats are foolish. They are, at the macro level, Democrats are massively foolish and have terrible ideas. We know this now, right? And so they were like, hey, why don't we have our first 80-year-old president? That was a terrible idea. Absolutely no one on either side thinks this was a good idea and that this was a successful experiment, right? So here's the thing. The Republicans still retain their brain badge, right? This was not a good idea, and anyone with half a brain knew it, right? This is not, you cannot make an 80-year-old person the president of the world, right? It's wrong on every level. This is wrong, right? So you have this, so basic, and the Republicans are like, and the Republicans at this point are like, yeah, that's a terrible idea. Now they're about to co-sign it, right? If President Trump wins, every Republican is co-signing the 80-year-old president experiment, saying it worked. It didn't, right? And that's the point, right? Democrats have the luxury of foolishness. Republicans are supposed to respect wisdom and knowledge, right? They're supposed to be the party that has their head screwed on straight, right? But if we do this, we co-sign an absolutely horrific experiment that failed, right? So Republicans co-sign a terrible, terrible experiment, and they co-sign the octogenarian president, which means we'll get more of them because both sides will have said this was a good idea, right? And it's a terrible idea. Vivek Ramaswamy is 37 years old. We will actually have a president of youth and vigor. He will be able to dance a jig around the wires, right? And if he falls down, he can actually do a somersault, right? He is literally in shape, right? I can play tennis without dying, right? It will be amazing to see a president of youth and vibrancy, right? And the Republicans can bring it. We've never had a 37-year-old president, right? The Republicans can say, we respect youth, right? We value youth. We value science, right? 37-year-old person is a better pick to lead the world than an 80-year-old person. 80 years old, is completely legitimate place. That is a completely legitimate age for hospice, not for the Oval Office, right? 80 years old, hospice, right? Not the Oval Office, right? So I think that's really important. And I think Vivek Ramaswamy allows the Republicans to say, we care about youth, we value youth, and we care about science, right? We look at scientific facts, right? Like, and so I think that, we know how to read an experiment, whether it passed or failed, right? And it's important, right? Like, because we don't want to do what Democrats are like, oh, wisdom, schmisdom, knowledge, schmolledge. You're like, who cares, right? Like, we do what we want, right? And yes, we get you're like the, unicorn tears and rainbow dreams party. We get it, right? Like, you guys don't run on knowledge or wisdom, right? I get it, right? But Republicans are supposed to, right? All right. Next, Ward Cleaver, the Ward Cleaver problem, right? So we have this terrible, horrible trend on the Republican side, right? And every single president we have ever elected is a clone of Ward Cleaver, right? Oh, and you don't know who Ward Cleaver is? It's a 1950 show. It was shot in black and white. It was called Leave It to Beaver, and Ward Cleaver was Beaver Cleaver's dad, right? And he looks a particular way, and he has two attributes, right? And right now, the Republicans are like, if you don't have these two attributes, you can kick rocks, and you cannot be the president. And it's outrageously prejudiced, right? And anybody who wants to can say, hey, y'alls are outrageously prejudiced, and the Democrats are not. Because the Democrats actually elected a person of color and proved with actual results that they are not prejudiced, right? The Republicans not being prejudiced is a theory, right? Because based on the evidence, Ward Cleaver is the only people they elect, and that is outrageously prejudiced. Electing Vivek Ramaswamy fixes that problem, right? Like, and proves that there are Republicans who are not dyed in the wool, completely dedicated to outrageous prejudice. It's important, right? So it's important that Vivek Ramaswamy is elected so that like the Republicans can put up or shut up, right? Like, they're saying they're not prejudiced, but their metrics don't show it. Their metrics show outrageous prejudice, and the Democrats have beaten them, right? And have proved that they are more than willing to elect people of color, right? And for Republicans, that's simply a theory that is not backed up by facts, right? And so, as president, right? So it solved the Ward Cleaver problem. So Vivek Ramaswamy solves the Ward Cleaver problem, right? Next is morality, right? The majority of Republicans are supposed to be Christian. We're supposed to be morally aligned to good or neutral, okay? It's important, right? Like, we don't want to elect evil people, right? But again, right? So, but, this is not a debatable fact. Donald Trump is morally bereft. He owned casinos which destroy lives, which absolutely destroy lives. That's not a debatable fact. That's a hardcore fact, right? Like, one of the most destructive forces in America is casinos. There is quite literally zero neighborhoods who are like, oh, a casino went up. And you know what was great? Lots of families continued to eat. And fathers weren't destroyed, and mothers weren't destroyed, and children weren't destroyed when they lost their entire houses, right? Like, he has put literally hundreds, if not thousands of families in the dirt, right? Like, economically. Like, that's what casinos do, right? He's morally bereft, right? He lies through his teeth. That's not a debatable fact. The entire book, Art of the Deal, is him telling you exactly how he lied to people for decades. And he didn't stop when he went into the president. He did it constantly, right? He has 3 wives, right? And it is now on, like, in constitutional record that when his last wife was having a child, he was having a relationship with, he's not, like, having a relationship with someone who is not his wife. He is morally bereft completely, right? And so he's not a Christian. He does not share Christian values in any way. He has John Dickerson said it best, he has a distant relationship to Christianity. He is not even remotely a Christian, right? And you could be a Christian and do all those things, right? You could absolutely be a Christian and do all those things, and you would say, I am a sinner, and I need God's grace. He is not saying that, right? He is completely unrepentant. He is not a Christian. He is morally bereft, right? And Vivek Ramaswamy is not. He is morally grounded, right? He's not the high ground of morality. He's not a saint, right? But he's not morally bereft, right? So Vivek Ramaswamy is the Republican saying, we value wisdom, we value knowledge, right? We value youth, right? We know how science works. We know how to see if an experiment passed or failed, right? Vivek Ramaswamy being chosen as U.S. president by Republicans says we are not dedicated to outrageous prejudice. That's not our party, right? And then last, they say, hey, as a Republican Party, we care about morality. We don't want somebody who is morally bereft. We want somebody who is morally grounded. Vivek Ramaswamy is a fantastic alternative to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is a garbage choice for any Republican. And no Republican should vote for him. He does not have any qualifications that are decent for an American leader, in my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.